Hey everybody, Pastor Matt here. Happy Tuesday, September 29th to you. I'm very thankful that we had such a wonderful weekend. We had a number of guests. Many of you were able to come out, especially for that 1031 service. We're just seeing God really do some wonderful things and really move in a wonderful way. And we just appreciate all of you who went to Sugar City, all of you who helped with the fence, and all of you who engaged with the prayer times, either whether it was the return or whether it was the Franklin Graham led march on, it's called Prayer March 2020. All of that took place on Saturday. Just a wonderful time that we had together. I want to just talk a little bit about something that I brought up on Sunday. So we as Christians, at least in our lane of Christianity, we look at the design that God has given to be male, female, husband and wife for life. Male, female, husband and wife for life. And we understand now that that cuts against the grain of a lot of what we're hearing in the culture. In fact, it cuts so far against the grain that now, because of what we hold, the culture is now looking at us and saying, how can you be so restrictive? How can you be so hurtful to say that I cannot love who I want to love, regardless of age, regardless of sex, regardless of number, regardless of crossing species? Who are you to tell me that I cannot do this? Well, let me give you a little bit about why we as Christians in our lane, and I have to say this, Christians in our lane who understand the Bible the way that we do, we have to come along and say, love is not love. This is why. In 1 Corinthians 6, verses 16 to 20, it talks about how sexual sin, now what we call sexual sin, anything that's outside of male, female, husband, wife, for life. So it's not just one type of sexual activity. I mean, it's a number of activities that don't fall into that design. So what are we saying? Well, what we're saying is that according to what Scripture is saying, sexual immorality like that sins against the body. It is a sin against the body. And so if we are engaging in that activity with someone else, then what we are doing is we are causing them to sin against the body. Because there's some Christians who even say that sexual sin, such as maybe pornography, well, that doesn't hurt anybody else. I would contend that it does. It hurts you, and it hurts your understanding of what sexuality is all about in relation to someone else. So it could hinder your relationships with someone else. But you're also looking at someone else having that sexual activity and how they are sinning against the body, and that your conscience is being seared to believe that that's okay. Or that there's certain in relationships, there's certain things that you can do in the relationship, but it may not be sexual activity, but it would be still something that you can go up to a certain line. That would then inflame lust, which Jesus speaks about in Matthew 5, that lust leads to that adultery. It's an adultery in the mind because you've already committed it in your heart, Jesus says. And so that's where there is this understanding of male, female, husband and wife for life. And so if you're engaged in something else like that, and especially if you are saying you're a follower of Jesus, if you're engaging in something that's outside of that, then what you're saying is, I'm redefining what love is. But Jesus is saying, and the Apostle Paul is saying, you are causing someone that you say you love to sin against their body. You're saying that that's love, but it's really sinning against their body. So you're not loving them. And so we've got to come along and speak the truth in love. So again, this was part of the sermon. And we have to be very, very careful. Even things that we're watching on TV or things that we may be laughing at on TV, we're all guilty of looking at those things and saying, it's just entertainment. That's not real. It's kind of funny. Ha ha. Well, we got to be careful. Are we allowing our consciences to be seared over things that are not a part of God's design? Again, it's not just one lane that we're talking about. Now, we tend to think about that. But sexual relationships before marriage, sexual relationships with someone that's not your spouse, is along that line, along with what many people identify with us about having a problem with homosexuality. We're wanting people to recognize God's design, male, female, husband and wife for life. That's what we're talking about. So just something to consider when we were talking about being image bearers of God and how God created them male and female. I mean, this is where we're at. So just want to let you know that. Be careful when we begin to talk about issues along that line. So just keep in mind, we're going to be talking to you later on more about how we're going to be voting for our new deacons. In fact, Steve Lutz is going to be, I think maybe Steve Lutz, maybe someone else, but he's going to be explaining on Sunday how we're going to be voting, and we're going to be doing it a little bit differently. We're going to do it electronically. And I believe this is a way for us to be able to move things forward well and have it a little more streamlined. But this is part of adapting. So that's what it's all about. Thanks a lot, everybody. God bless.